All righty then. Let's get a move on here. What do we think? What do we think? Bell ringer, here we go. Describe the limbic system and its basic functions. There we go. Get after it. Minor current events. We have Casey and Layla, so check that out online. I emailed you about that, so I'll have that ready to go for Friday. Start a class, it should be in, so I can show the rest of the class. All right, limbic system, basic functions. There we go. So we're going on a bell ringer. Nice sweatshirt. I'll see you at the end of class then, Cody. I'll just show you what you're missing. Okay. We'll get you. Yes. I think Friday. Yeah. Yeah, Friday. So funny, Troutman. No, you're not laughing. Okay. All right. Whoa. Jeez. It's assault, brother. Oh. Brewster, how was your day yesterday? Yeah. What do you do after school? Never mind. I don't want. What all do you do? Play some Call of Duty. You take a nap after school. What time did you play? Like 10 o'clock? Jeez. Who was? Who's that? Cody. You guys are playing together? Nice. Oh, man. Gee, dang it. You done with this here? Yeah. What are you doing on your phone? Uh-huh. What you got to do? Bring it charged, right? All right. I don't know if you saw, but on the board, we're going to have a brain quiz on Monday. Okay, Monday. So Friday, I have another one of those Bowman Show clips for you. So bring your headsets with. And do the work in class. All right? I don't want to hear, oh, we'll get it done later. Right, TC? Yeah. All right. So bring your headsets. It's just a review, okay? It's just a review to help you with the quiz for Monday. It's a pretty big quiz, obviously, because it's the whole brain and all its functions and parts. So, yeah, I think that'll be beneficial for you. And you can use those graphic organizers as a study tool. The last one today, Cerebral Cortex, and get you ready to go for that. All right, limbic system. Its basic functions. What is another name for the limbic system? What do we got? Katie, go ahead. The midbrain. Yeah, why do they call it the midbrain? Yeah, it's the middle, right? Yeah, there you go. There you go. So brainstem comes up, right? Okay, at the top of the brainstem, we have the limbic system. It's that inner bladder of the brain, right? Okay, we'll talk about the cerebral cortex today and how that kind of goes over top of that limbic system. All right, so with the limbic system, what's its basic functions? What we have here, its basic functions. We talked about this yesterday. Basic functions of the limbic system. Katie, go ahead, take it away.
It's very involved in like the emotions and the memory of the person.
Yeah, good job. So memory and emotion, right? Memory and emotion. So make sure you know those basic parts there, memory and emotion. We're just going over the bell ringer right now. Okay. So moving on here, let's talk about specific parts within the limbic system. All right. So what is the hippocampus? What do they do? Bless you. What's the function of the hippocampus? Cody, go ahead.
Help with past and present memories?
Yeah, good job. Past and present memories. You remember that example I gave yesterday? And walk into the store you work at, right? Yeah, with food. Okay, that's a good example. Whenever you walk into a store or restaurant, right? You know exactly what you want, especially with McDonald's. I'll take a number one. A little weird that I know all the menu items just by the numbers, but hey, it is what it is. What is number one? What is a number one McDonald's?
Just a,
What is it?
just a burger?
No, no, no,
McDouble?
no. Come on, Katie. It's a Big Mac. Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, it's a Big Mac. Oh, okay. You know a little bit more than I do. All right, yeah. So number one, Big Mac. Yeah, past and present memories. Especially this pizza place in Valley View I love. It was called Prima Pizza. It was Vietnamese style pizza, if you believe it or not. The dough was real fluffy, sweet sauce, loaded with cheese. Heck, half the times I go in there, they just say, "Hey, take it. You got it for free," because I went there a lot. It was like $10 a pie. It was awesome. So whenever I walk in, I smell the aroma of it. Great times, good stuff. And I won a prize one time on the claw game. Yeah, you guys ever see Toy Story? The aliens, the claw. Yeah. So every time I walk in there, I'm like, oh, I remember I won I think it was a Jeff Gordon NASCAR soft toy thing. It was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. My dad hated Jeff Gordon, so I was like, oh, yeah, Jeff Gordon. So cool. All right, so the hippocampus, past and present memories. All right, amygdala. Amygdala. Oh, how many hippocampuses are there? Sorry about that. Is there two, right? It branches around, right? It's like the arms. Comes around. Don't mess with this, huh? And then the amygdala is like the fists of the arms. Okay, they're right at the end. Okay, so the amygdala, there's two of them. Amygdala, I guess you could say. What is the functions of the amygdala? What do you have? What do we have? Dom, go ahead. Okay, yeah, good job. Specifically, what kind of emotion? Yeah, pleasure. Good job. Good job. So when we think of relating our memories and emotions, right? A lot of it with pleasure. Okay, our pleasure-seeking principle, I guess you could say, and how that is really just creating our hormone levels to a point where we feel happy, okay, or anxious, anxiety in a way. Okay, so a lot of times when TC is running down the sideline, okay, he scores that touchdown, he feels this jolt of energy, he's happy. Okay, he's about ready to spike the ball in the end zone, get a flag on him, then get yelled at by coach. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, feelings of pleasure mostly, and that's right at the ends of the hippocampus, hippocampi, whatever you want to say. All right, hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. What do we have here? What is the hypothalamus? What does that do? Brewster, go ahead.
It like regulates our body.
Yeah, good job. Good job. So analyzes blood flow, body temperature. Okay, so again, if there's ever an imbalance in our body, we can try to balance that. The hypothalamus helps to try to balance those issues. Good job. And that is right at the top of the brainstem, located right next to the thalamus, which does a very similar process, which analyzes incoming, outgoing information from the brain and the rest of the body. All right, good job. I think that's really all we went over yesterday, those parts. Yeah, yeah. We talked about the cerebellum with the brainstem, I think, didn't we? Yeah, I think so. Okay, what is the cerebellum? What does that do again? What's another name for it? Willy Wonka, do you remember?
Little brain.
Yeah, the little brain. Okay, good job. What does it do?
It enables nonverbal learning, and also it helps judge time, regulate our emotions, and helps us perform actions we do.
Yeah, good job. All right, so like balance too, coordination, okay, things like that. And we talked about the scenario with alcohol, how that is affecting the cerebellum, and how we may have some balance issues with that. Okay, so graphic organizer from yesterday. Hopefully you turned that in, which pretty much everybody did. Good stuff. Like to see that. Dom, hopefully the one today doesn't screw with you. I don't think so. It's more like a coloring thing. Right? You color different lobes of the brain and you just label at the bottom. So we won't have these boxes there. All right, here we go. What is this part right here? Cerebellum. Good job. We just talked about that. Balance, coordination. little bit of memories, things like that. All right, what about this here? What do we have here? What do we have? TC? Yeah, hippocampus, past, present memory. We talked about that. All right, branches off the hippocampus. Right at the end, these two bulbs. Megan, do you remember? Right here at the end of the hippocampus. Amygdala, good job. And then finally, last one, connected pretty close to body temperature, you name it. All right, is there any questions on that? We good? Make sure you remember that for the quiz on Monday. Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, moving on, moving on. All right, cerebral cortex. Here we go. Last thing I want to talk about, well, no, tomorrow I want to talk about the temporal lobe a little bit more and split brain procedure. Oh, stop epilepsy. Just cut the brain in half. Good idea, right? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. All right, so lobes of the brain we're going to talk about today. This is the cerebral cortex. So with many advanced organisms, obviously humans, right? Chimpanzees, monkeys, dolphins, pretty cool, dolphins. They have an advanced brain, okay, evolved over time, and it has evolved from just the basic brain stem, the limbic system. Now it has cerebral cortex. So you have rational thought, plan, judgment. You can set objectives. Okay, motor movements, motor memory. So it's like almost instinctive that we can do these actions without even thinking about it. And again, just because we have evolved brain with the cerebral cortex. And this is the part. It kind of it's right on the outside. When you look at the brain, this is what you really focus on, what you really see. And the limbic system, obviously inside the inner bladder, the midbrain, and then you have the hindbrain, the brain stem coming up inside, okay, stemming from the spinal cord. All right, so the cerebral cortex, thin layer of interconnected neural cells, ultimate control and information processing center. Okay, so with the frontal lobe especially, we're going to talk about how judgment, planning, setting objectives, mathematical reasoning is all kind of stored in that part of the brain. Frontal lobe, very similar, and does a lot of things with judgment, okay? And when we talk about that a little bit more in detail. The temporal lobe with auditory processing, occipital with visualization. Okay, again, this is all a little bit more advanced. It evolved over time to a point where we can communicate with other people. We can understand, comprehend different things and different experiences around us. All right, so the wrinkles of the brain, make sure you remember this. Fissures, that'll probably be on a quiz. And then the folds, the gyri. Okay, the gyri. So when you look at the brain, the fissures are these lines, okay, inside the brain. And then the gyri kind of pokes out is what the pink part, I guess you could say, the gray matter, what it looks like of the brain. Okay, fissures, again, is kind of what those lines are within the brain. Okay, and then the gyri is what we see as the folds, I guess you could say, the gray matter. All right, so make sure you remember fissures and then the gyri. Okay, fissures, again, those lines within the brain. We can understand it by separation of the different lobes, and gyri is those folds, the gray matter. All right, so we're going to get into the lobes right now. So the frontal lobe, obviously, front part of the brain, right behind the forehead. Okay, the frontal lobe. It's a portion of the cerebral cortex just behind the forehead, like I mentioned, and involves the motor cortex, okay, which we'll talk about here soon, and involved in making plans and judgment. Different types of mathematical reasoning, rational thought, okay, setting objectives, all located within the frontal lobe. Okay, again, just right behind the forehead. So planning, maybe if you're going to schedule an event, setting objectives, like I said, any rational thought, mostly performed in the frontal lobe. right behind the forehead. You got that, Cody? Are you watching something there? Okay, all right, good. Good stuff, good stuff. So the frontal lobe, right in front here. And then we'll talk about it here next slide, but the motor cortex is right behind the frontal lobe. Okay, the motor cortex, and we'll talk about the sensory cortex, kind of separates the frontal lobe and the parietal lobe. All right, again, we'll talk about that next slide here, but just make sure you know that the motor cortex is right behind that frontal lobe. Okay, frontal lobe, again, judgment, okay, you're setting objectives, planning, scheduling things, rational thought, rational thinking, mathematical reasoning, comprehension, kind of perform there, and the parietal lobe. Parietal lobe, portion of cerebral cortex at the top of the head, okay, the top of the head, right behind, again, the motor cortex, the sensory cortex, and it's very similar to what the frontal lobe does with reasoning, rational thought, rational thinking, okay, and general processing. So inductive reasoning is another example. Remember what inductive reasoning is, deductive reasoning. So if we turn something on, we know that to turn it off, and we can understand how different things work with operations of different inventions, innovations, things like that. Okay, so maybe using of motor vehicles, things like that. So parietal lobe, again, on the top of the brain, okay, top of the head, right behind the cerebral or the motor cortex and the sensory cortex. All right, so the motor cortex, more in detail, again, is right behind the frontal lobe, just a small portion. Obviously, it's on both hemispheres of the brain. All these lobes are, okay? And it's in charge of movement of body parts, plain and simple. Motor cortex, movement. Got that, TC? Yeah? Okay. Watching football players or something? No? Okay. Okay, good. Motor cortex on the right side of the brain controls movements on the left side, okay, and vice versa, which I think is interesting. So if we move our left hand, move our left arm, it's actually controlled by the right side of our brain, the motor cortex. I have a little activity here for you to try then. Tough to do, tough to do. So motor cortex, again, right behind the frontal lobe, right behind it. Both hemispheres, controls motor movements, movement of body parts. All right, so here's the activity. So try moving your foot in a direction. Oh, sorry. So let's just say you're going to move your foot, rotate your foot. I can't really see with this table here. It's hard. I can never really do it. You're going to move your foot, let's say clockwise, okay? You're going to do your hand the same way. And where's that controlled? Left side or right side of the brain? In the motor cortex. I'm moving my right hand, right foot, left side. Yeah. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is try moving. You guys can all try this at the same time if you want. It's hard to do. You guys are going to make fun of me because I can never do it. So I'm doing it right. Okay, now try to move your left hand counterclockwise and foot. Well, I can't do it. Can't do it. So move your hand counterclockwise and your foot clockwise. Well, it's tough. It's tough at first, but once you practice it over and over again, you can eventually do it. But it's tough to do. I think it's pretty hard. I'm going to try it again. Right, left. Woo. Okay, there we go. I think I got it. Oh, it's tough. It's tough. Try it on your own. Gracie, I know you're going to try it later. Don't act like you're better right now. All right, so I think that's pretty cool. All right. Oh, last thing, sensory cortex for this part here. Sensory cortex is right in front of the parietal lobe. So again, when you see it, you have your frontal lobe right behind the forehead. The motor cortex is right behind that frontal lobe. Then you have the sensory cortex. You got that, TC? Right behind the motor cortex. And then you have the parietal lobe. Got that? All right, so the sensory cortex, parietal lobe right in front of it. And processes body, touch, and movement sensations. Oh, makes sense, right? Sensory cortex, sensory information. And vice versa, right side of the body, okay, it's controlled on the left side. So let's say we have something We feel something on our arm, on the right side, our right arm. We actually process in the left side of our brain. Right? Tom, you especially being in the trenches right up front. You damage your arm. Let's say, I don't know, you hurt your shoulder, trying to do a block and you're pulling guard, trying to blow out that DN, you blow out your shoulder. Oh, it's processing left side, sensory cortex. Okay, and vice versa. Vice versa. Got that, TC? You throw the ball with your right hand, right? Where's it processed? You throw the ball with your right hand, right? Your right arm. Where's that processed in the brain? Huh? Motor cortex. What side of the brain? If you're a righty, throw it with your right hand. Left side. There you go. There you go. Good job. Good job. All right. And keep you on your toes back there. Keep you on your toes. All right. So this is what we got here. This is what we got looking at. So we have the frontal lobe, like I mentioned. Okay. We have different planning, judgments, reasoning, rational thinking. Okay. And we have the motor cortex right behind the frontal lobe. It's still part of the frontal lobe. And we have the sensory cortex, which is right behind the motor cortex, and that's a part of the parietal lobe. Okay, and the parietal lobe, mathematical thinking, right? Comprehension, understanding, very similar to what the frontal lobe does. And we're moving on. So motor cortex, I thought this little chart was funny. Oh, motor movements. It's a little gross, I think. Reminds me something of Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street. All right, temporal lobe. Temporal lobe, obviously where your temple is, right? Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Involved in auditory processing. So hearing, okay, hearing. How we can comprehend information of what we hear. So the temporal lobe contains the hippocampus, involved with memory a little bit as well. Okay. Hippocampus is right inside of this temporal lobe. So when we hear something, obviously it related to some sort of memory experience, like exactly that part in the song where it's like, oh, here comes a beat. Here comes a beat. Yeah, I remember this. Good experiences here with this. The temporal lobe, auditory processing. Right side, left side of the brain, okay, obviously both hemispheres has it. It's on the side of your brain, okay. Occipital lobe, portion of the cerebral cortex just in the back of the brain. So in the back of the brain, right behind, underneath the parietal lobe. Okay, it's right above the cerebellum. We talked about the cerebellum already. And it's responsible for visual functions. Okay, we'll talk about this more in detail when we get to sensation and perception. But with visualizing information, we actually see pictures and we see what we see, obviously, visualize it upside down. Okay, so our eyes are visualizing the information and it's projected onto our brain upside down. Okay, so our occipital lobe, which is in the back of the brain, has to process it and flip that image, that visualization upside down for us. Okay, it has to flip it back upside down so we can actually see and grab something, and we can react. We can, form reflexes to certain things that may be in our way, which I think is interesting. So when we're actually visualizing information, we see it upside down, and our brain flips it right back up. Okay, and it's processed on either side of the occipital lobe. Same thing. So your right eye processes the left side of the occipital lobe. Left eye, right part of the occipital lobe. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Especially with these professional athletes, they have to process that information. Their brain has to process it at a fast rate. Okay, NASCAR drivers, moving at a fast rate. That's tough to do, and you have to process that information in order to react to it. All right, so I'll give an example here. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Okay, same with aphasia, plasticity. The last thing I want to get to, just so you can work on this activity tonight, is the Broca's area and the Wernicke's area. So we have the Broca's area, kind of in the frontal lobe, right? And part of the temporal lobe, and the Wernicke's area and temporal lobe as well. Okay, so it's located kind of right on the frontal lobe, part of the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe. and the Wernicke's area is totally in that temporal lobe. Last thing I want to go over, Broca's area located in the left frontal lobe involved with expressive language. So speaking, communicating. So professional athletes, especially with boxing, MMA fighters, football players, has a lot of contact sport. If they ever take damage to the Broca's area, they might have some sort of speech impairment. Okay, it's going to be hard for them to communicate. And you see that a lot, especially with those combat sports. Okay, they might stutter, they might have a miscommunication in some way, but they can't communicate correctly. Happens a lot. And then Wernicke's area located in temporal lobe. Again, if you want to, the Broca's area is part of the frontal and part of the temporal. That's fine if you label that on a quiz. The Wernicke's area is totally in the temporal lobe, okay, on the side of the brain, and controls receptive language, how we understand what someone says, what someone speaks. So comprehension, okay, that makes sense. We'll talk about some examples tomorrow if there's damages with the Wernicke's area. In some cases, people wake up speaking a totally different language. You can't understand it. Can't understand it. Certain situations that not, obviously that's rare, but has happened before. Pretty neat stuff. Pretty neat stuff. Wee, right? Just kidding. Right, Rooster? Versteh. What does versteh mean? German? Anybody?
Do you understand?
Oh, you got it, Megan. Good work. Good work. All right. First day, everybody. First day. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. I'd like you guys to work on this activity now. It should be posted on Google Classroom. Cerebral cortex. There it is. So you're just going to color in the lobes. You can color in whatever color you want. So frontal lobe, let's say you want to do it green. I don't know. Let's say you want to color it green. Color that in green, and then you describe the lobe. What does it do? What's its basic functions? Motor cortex, we know that's right behind the frontal lobe. Okay, it's a part of it. It's right behind it, and then describe what the motor cortex does. You guys got it? Pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. All right, there you go. There you go. I posted the video along with the lesson today, so you can check that out. It's just one of those 2-minute neuroscience ones again. I love those. I love those. Quick and easy, right to the point. So that will be attached to the assignment. All right, do tomorrow. Do tomorrow. Remember, quiz Monday, the 23rd. See ya.